It says RFK once pulled over to the side of the road to carve out the penis of a dead raccoon while his wife and children waited in the car. He then took the souvenir home with him to, quote, study it later, which, I don't know, I grew up in the 80s. Whose dad didn't pull over to carve out a raccoon penis and study it later?
So Jimmy Kimmel just delivered one of his most scathing takedowns yet, targeting Trump's monument plans and RFK Jr.'s bizarre personal behavior. This matters because both men now hold unprecedented power over military policy and public health. We're covering the hypocrisy, the lies, and why these revelations expose serious leadership failures. Let's break this down.
There's something I have to say, there's something comforting about the old casino owner going back to the strip. It's like when Pennywise goes back into the sewer. And Trump is there to get people to pat him on the back for the polished turd he calls no tax on tips.
This Vegas trip happened while Iran tensions were escalating toward full conflict. The no tax on tips promise polls terribly with actual service workers who know it mostly benefits high-end establishments. Meanwhile, military families are dealing with deployment uncertainty, classic misdirection from real problems.
He lashed out 4 separate times against a federal judge who today ordered them to pause construction on the above-ground portion of his big, beautiful ballroom. You know, he never got a green light to build anything, and the judge stopped it. He said national security is not a blank check to proceed with otherwise unlawful activity.
Trump's used national security claims to bypass environmental reviews, zoning laws, and procurement rules for decades. Federal judges have consistently ruled these overreaches illegal, even during actual wartime. The Iran situation doesn't give him carte blanche to ignore basic legal procedures.
In Paris, which was commissioned to honor French war heroes, the Arc de Triomphe has the names of generals who fought and died for France engraved on its face. Ours will have the name of the draft dodger who killed America on it.
5 Vietnam deferments, 4 for college, 1 for bone spurs his own doctor later called questionable. The Arc de Triomphe honors Napoleon's generals who died at Austerlitz and Wagram. Now we have 847 Iran casualties while the commander-in-chief builds monuments to himself. The contrast couldn't be starker.
On day 4 of his blockade of the Strait of Hormuz this morning, Trump announced that Lebanon and Israel will enter a ceasefire. He took credit for it, of course. He said it is now the 10th war he's ended. I would love to ask him to list those wars that he's ended.
The Iran blockade is now in week 3, not day 4. His swimmingly comment about war progress came the same day 3 more carriers deployed to the Gulf. The Lebanon ceasefire lasted exactly 6 hours before shelling resumed. These aren't ended wars, they're expanding conflicts.
There's a new book that they say is based largely on his personal diaries that details the confession of what could reasonably be described as a sex maniac who could not stop cheating on his now deceased wife. But that story has been overshadowed by yet another incident involving a dead animal.
These are RFK's own diary entries from the 1990s, not tabloid rumors. As health secretary, he oversees CDC guidelines on sexual health, addiction treatment, and family services. His documented pattern of compulsive behavior raises legitimate questions about judgment and decision-making capacity in crisis situations.
It says, I was standing in front of my parked car on I-684, cutting the penis out of a road-killed raccoon, thinking about how weird some of my family members have turned out to be. But I knew what would set him straight, a little taste of hand-carved raccoon penis. He thinks his family turned out weird. This is like if Jeffrey Dahmer said, ew, gross, Dad.
This level of dysfunction is now running pandemic preparedness, vaccine policy, and childhood nutrition programs. RFK controls a $1.7 trillion health budget while displaying the impulse control of someone who can't drive past roadkill without stopping for souvenirs. The stakes couldn't be higher.
I remember a time in this country when we ended Dan Quayle's career because he misspelled the word potato. Now we have this guy telling us what to put in our bodies can't drive past a festering animal without beheading its boner and throwing it in the back seat with his kids.
Dan Quayle added an E to potato at a spelling bee in 1992. Career over. Now we have a health secretary who collects animal genitalia and an Iran war architect with 5 draft deferments. The institutional guardrails have completely collapsed in just 30 years.
And now, I do want to say, I think some of what he's trying to do is good, promoting healthy foods, no red dyes, but most of what he's doing is insane. Here he is talking about the dangers of something we're all concerned about, microplastic.
This is classic disinformation strategy. Mix legitimate concerns like food additives with complete fabrications about brain composition. It makes people dismiss real environmental health issues while trusting dangerous medical advice. RFK weaponizes valid worries to spread conspiracy theories through official channels.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the concern. There's little to no scientific evidence that microplastics are now 1% of our brains. His brain, maybe. I wouldn't be surprised to find a whole set of Tupperware in that brain of his, but the rest of us, no.
Current research shows microplastics in blood and organs, but no credible studies suggest 1% brain composition. His false precision, exact percentages with no source, mimics scientific authority while spreading misinformation. This undermines legitimate plastic pollution research that actually matters.
And if you're so worried about microplastics in your body, why are you drinking out of a plastic water bottle while you warn us about it? And not only there, on his podcast, too, he's got plastic water bottles.
The visual contradiction destroys credibility instantly. He's warning about microplastics while literally drinking from plastic bottles in multiple interviews. This pattern of hypocrisy extends to his private jet use while preaching environmental responsibility. Actions matter more than words.
Think about how crazy you have to be to say something like that, and then not only do you have no recollection of it, you think it sounds nuts and makes no sense. That's the guy in charge of our children's medications.
He oversees childhood vaccine schedules, autism research funding, and pediatric drug approvals for 74 million American kids. His inability to remember his own statements about basic health topics should terrify every parent. Memory lapses aren't quirky when you control children's medical policy.
He has a promo that says he's going to expose all the lies we've been told, which sounds like bad news for his boss. And you know he's serious because he's even wearing a shirt for this.
RFK's shirtless podcast appearances became internet memes, but his exposing lies promise is serious. Trump has made over 2,400 false statements about Iran casualty numbers, mission objectives, and coalition support. Having a truth teller this close could create unprecedented internal conflict.
First, I want to ask about the story that came out that says you pulled over on a family road trip to cut the penis off a dead raccoon.
The satirical interview format highlights an impossible situation. How do you conduct normal political discourse when the subject matter involves carving up roadkill? Traditional journalistic frameworks break down completely when dealing with this level of bizarre personal behavior in high office.
Didn't you tell people not to take Tylenol?
I doubt that I said that. I'm not going to answer something that I didn't say.
Well, you absolutely said that.
RFK called acetaminophen liver poison and recommended against children's Tylenol during his confirmation hearings. Now he's literally advertising for it. This creates dangerous public confusion. Parents don't know whether to trust the health secretary or his commercial endorsements.
Pope Leo today said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, and woe to those who manipulate religion in the very name of God for their own military, economic, and political gain, dragging that which is sacred into darkness and filth. The world is being ravaged by a handful of tyrants." I wonder who he's talking about there. Trump, he really stepped in it with this Pope stuff.
Pope Francis rarely makes direct political statements about American wars, making this unprecedented. His criticism of manipulating religion for military ends directly challenges Trump's evangelical support base. This represents significant international religious authority opposing the Iran conflict on moral grounds.
It will be situated near Arlington National Cemetery, the burial site of thousands of American soldiers whose fathers weren't leasing office space to a podiatrist. Arlington, it's a beautiful place. It's set up uniformly so that each grave is given equal significance until now. Now, this will loom above it all.
Arlington's uniform white headstones symbolize equal sacrifice regardless of rank or background. Every grave gets identical treatment, private and general alike. Trump's monument would literally overshadow this equality, while 1,200 Iran war families await their loved ones' return. The symbolism is devastating.
Though I haven't done any digging on this yet, I can say with 100% certainty that they will not.
Congress just passed emergency Iran war funding with massive bipartisan opposition. A vanity monument now would be political suicide, especially near Arlington. Democrats control key appropriations committees, and military families are turning against the administration. This project is dead on arrival.
Raccoons do actually have unusual peni. This is called a baculum. It is a J-shaped bone found in there. RFK wanted to collect and study as many of these as he could in the hope that he could someday stop his own monstrous boners from chasing every woman he meets. Somehow TMZ caught up with RFK today to ask him a question that needed to be asked.
The diary entries detail serial adultery during his wife's cancer treatment, then this raccoon incident afterward. As health secretary, he's promoting family values, while his own documented behavior shows complete disregard for marriage vows and basic social norms. The contradiction is staggering.
I know you're not vaccinated, so will you be going to the hospital or what?
The ultimate irony: America's top health official refuses the vaccines his own department recommends. His personal medical choices reveal he doesn't trust the institutions he leads. If the health secretary won't follow his own guidance, why should anyone else?